Maybe you noticed on the title slide that kind of the second part of the title is towards a Mediterranean world system. And we call this area a world system because the Mediterranean is a collection of lots of different, what geographers consider micro-regions that share some common features. And because they have those commonalities, they constitute what we would call a macro region. And it's really those commonalities that tie them together. So it might be people that speak different languages or have a few different things that they don't necessarily share, but by and large, where they live influences them in a very similar way. So for all these people, the central feature that influences them is the Mediterranean Ocean. And the importance of that ocean cannot be overstated. The Mediterranean means that Greece has a huge seacoast with tons of islands and bays that provide safe anchorage and harbors. And all Greek societies end up becoming seafarers who explore the smaller seas nearby, including the Aegean. First for trade, later on they established colonies. Greece itself is a peninsula, and it's an archipelago, which is a series of islands that jut off, 3,000 of them about. And there's almost 10,000 miles of coastline. So that means that inevitably these folks are going to be very sea-focused. They're going to be very seafaring. When it comes to the land, if you take a look at this map on the left that has the different colors, those darker areas indicate higher elevations. And Greece is pretty much 80% mountains. The highest point is Mount Olympus. It is just a little bit under 10,000 feet high. In Ferrum, we're at about 1,300 feet, and we are 225 miles away from the coast. Mount Olympus is just a little bit less in terms of elevation than where we are, but it's also only 11 miles from the ocean, which means that it goes up dramatically and pretty precipitously. So Greece as a whole is really mountainous. It has lots of valleys, and that means that it's a lot harder for people to get from one place to another and visit each other. So I don't know, by way of example, some of you may have gone to Floyd at some point. Floyd, as the crow flies, is less than 10 miles away from Ferrum, but if you've driven it, you've probably gone up a road called Shooting Creek Road that is pretty treacherous, pretty precipitous and windy. It's not an easy drive in a car. It certainly wouldn't have been easy before cars. And that means that in many ways, even though people might be, again, as the crow flies, if you're looking down from the top of a map pretty close to each other, geography separates them a lot. And that means that different cities that develop tend to be very independent. And at least early on, people don't interact with each other a whole heck of a lot. There are some places like you can see on the map here, the green areas in Thessaly, in Macedonia. We aren't going to get to Alexander the Great in this class, but one of the reasons that the Macedonians are so successful is because their ability to farm in those plains up there. In terms of climate, the Mediterranean is quite mild. They've got wet winters, hot, dry summers. Temperatures don't really get too uncomfortable. In many ways, it's kind of like where I went to graduate school, coastal California. It's never too hot, it's never too cold. It's great for agriculture as long as you can get enough water, which they do. They're mainly a grain-based society here in ancient Greece. Growing stuff on mountains isn't necessarily all that easy, though. So that also means that they engage in lots of animal husbandry. And goats and sheep, probably not too surprising to you, are the types of animals that live well enough on mountain ranges. If you go to Greece today, you're probably going to get something that is goat or sheep related if you go out to eat. So these folks are people who are able to live pretty easily in their environment. They're folks who live out to the sea in terms of trade and sustenance. And in general, because of that, their worldview is going to be a lot better than, say, ancient Mesopotamians who live in a pretty tough environment. And in general, it's going to be pretty optimistic, which is something that we want to tease out through the rest of these slides.